All right, so we're live streaming on the social stairs out to the campuses and the world, but we're also streaming into the faculty lounge. And so if you don't want to sit on the stairs, you can feel free to go into the faculty lounge and watch it over there as well. I'm Christina Matura, and I'm the manager for faculty development, and I also teach speech classes as an adjunct here at Austin Community College. And it's our pleasure to bring you the first ever Austin Community College Ed Talks, which is kind of our little version of TED Talks. And we have some local expertise here to share with you some innovative and interesting ideas that they've used and found to be very helpful. First off, we are going to hear from Professor Samantha Akers, and her presentation is called, "What the Bleep Are These Kids Talking About? Snapchat in the Classroom." And we're going to discover Snapchat, which is a fun and sometimes controversial messaging app, and she uses this tool in her classroom to help with student success. And she joined the English faculty in 2015, and she has over 15 years of experience as an assistant professor of English and educational studies. She also teaches family law and legal studies, and she feels teaching students at their level with respect is her best practice tip for success. So join me in a round of applause to welcome Professor Samantha Akers.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Happy Friday. Welcome to our first ACC Ed Talk. I hope you enjoy it, and I'm super excited to share techniques that have worked so far in my classrooms. This technique I use in English and legal studies classes. So let's start and get going. Today we're going to talk about the technique I use. It's geared to, back to this slide, provide engagement. I definitely realize that students need to be engaged, and I've definitely committed to my part of providing engagement. So in today's activities, I'm going to just share my sense of engagement to the students, and I use interactive activities using technology. So the slide indicates that we're closing the engagement gap. I'm trying to use a new approach to motivation. The statistics and the studies show that excellent professors, or whatever professor we are, we can't motivate our students. Our students motivate themselves. They bring motivation to the classroom. I've read the stats. After 15 plus years, I believe it. So doing engagement activities allow them to bring their motivation to the class, and then we can get some learning done. So the collaborative learning with Snapchat, if you want to know more about Snapchat, I've added the website, and you can look it up. And Snapchat it's just a free app. And it seems like students, old and young, in between, love apps. So the student learns through using things they love, and I'm there to engage them. So we come up with student motivation and engagement. What we do is, when the students come into the class from the very first day, we have what I've called is a digital citizenship at work contract. So in the digital citizenship at work contract, it simply highlights how we use our digital technology. Of course, everyone likes Go, so I put that first, but Go means your devices may be on and you're staying on task. Yield means place your devices face down, wait for instruction. And then stop, of course, means turn your devices off. So when they come into the classroom, we're specifically on stop. So even though I allow them to enter the class and release their whatever they come in with, which means they're walking in on the cell phone, once they see the stop, they actually stop because we've agreed to this contract, and they turn their devices off. No silent, no vibrate. And it works. So I have their captive attention for 18 minutes. In those 18 minutes, I'm able to deliver the instructions. I'm able to let them know what's expected. I'm able to answer any questions. And as they're engaging, their motivation is the next sign will be yield. So they know that they're able to place their devices face down, they're waiting for instructions, and then it's gonna come. So because our classes are timed, I know that in that 18 minutes of instruction, I need to get everything out. So any questions could be answered during this yield time. So what I do in teaching English, in our interactive workshops, you cannot leave the building without a thesis statement. So we all know how difficult it can be to come up with a thesis statement that clearly states the topic. So in that yield part, we're talking about the assignment. We're talking about the thesis statement. We're talking about what you need to do once we go to the go. So once we get to the go, their devices are on, they're on task, they are ready to do what you do to bring motivation and engagement to the classroom. So in the go stage, the students get 18 to 20 minutes to have that phone on the go, and they are doing what they do in the Snapchat app, in whatever app they choose, however device they're on, be it a laptop, iPad, it doesn't matter, they're in the go stage. So as we're in that go stage, we're able to actually come up with the assignment. So this is the assignment that the students are working on through the Snapchat. The assignment is simply to use Snapchat when writing your essays. It allows their engagement in the writing process, and they collaborate in a contemporary communication mode. So if you look at the class chat number 1, this class chat I get after 10 minutes. 10 minutes, you're on your phones, you're developing a thesis statement. I will get a claim. I'll get, in this example, the claim is, and this is all student driven, this claim is, Professor Akers is the best English teacher at ACC. This is my student saying that. We love that. The reason they're saying is because she brings joy and spontaneity to an otherwise dull topic. Their warrant is great teachers inspire their students to go the extra mile and to better themselves. Their evidence is Professor Akers' bubbly personality combined with great knowledge of the subject exhibits a love for the students and, a love for the topic and her students. So in this chat 1, we have it in 10 minutes. They've come up with a pretty good thesis statement. So students will just stay with that thesis statement. But then because the Snapchat app allows you to continue the conversation, by the next class, we have class chat 2, and class chat 2 is more developed. It actually states the instructions, developing an evaluative argument, and it actually cleans up the thesis. In my classes, I don't allow pronouns, so if you can see on the second bottom claim, there are no pronouns. It's no she, it's no their, it's no themselves. So by the second chat, we're able to see that discussion is happening, they're motivated, collaboration is happening, and I get A's and B's on thesis statements. So hopefully you guys can inspire the students to use more devices and electronics in the class and embrace it. I thank you guys for your attention and your time. I wish you happy days. Pray for me, I'll pray for you, and let's make things happen in our classrooms through technology. Thanks so much for your time.
All right, so we're going to get started with our second Ed Talk, and we're going to be taking a look at who's our daddy. And what we mean by that is, who's our community college daddy? And it's going to be an interesting talk about Bronson Alcott, who's a transcendentalist, educator, vegan, and all-around nonconformist. And today, Zoe Irene Van Zant is going to tell us who our daddy really is in her talk. And Zoe Irene Van Zant has been a part of the history faculty at ACC since 1989. And her fascination with 19th century intellectual and social reform eventually led to her interest in the hub of brain activity that was Concord, Massachusetts in the mid-1800s. Now, she had a 2008 sabbatical, which resulted in an extended trip to the Northeast with a focus on education reform, and she participated in a 2011 National Endowment for the Humanities workshop centered on these Concord transcendentalists. So let's give a round of applause for Professor Van Zandt.
Thank you. Good morning. A vegan who didn't eat potatoes, a farmer who wouldn't use an animal to pull a plow, a father and educator who moved his family 19 times in 20 years. Ladies and gentlemen, let me present to you Amos Bronson Alcott, the intellectual forefather of the community college. Bronson Alcott was born in 1799. His formal education was limited. He was mostly a self-educated man. As a young man, he became part of the group known as New England Transcendentalists, a group of intellectual thinkers and writers who dominated intellectual life in the mid-19th century in the United States. They included people like Ralph Waldo Emerson, Henry David Thoreau, Margaret Fuller, my favorite, and Elizabeth Peabody. In a rejection of the rationalism of the Enlightenment, transcendentalists believed that intuition was more important than logic. It's kind of ironic given how highly educated they all were. They embraced nature. They liked to be outdoors. I guess they didn't have allergies. And they believed in the divinity of all creation. Many transcendentalists also became Unitarians, a religious belief that departs from traditional Christian theology in that they believed in the oneness of God, not the triune nature of God in traditional Christianity. Transcendentalists, between their belief in the universality of divinity and their Unitarianism, were often labeled at best as apostates and at worst as atheists. They were the free thinkers of their day. And nobody was more of a free thinker than Bronson Alcott. We can see his nonconformist views, especially in his educational experiments. In the 1830s, he opened the Temple School for Children in Boston, Massachusetts. Bronson Alcott had a very far-thinking and forward-thinking idea about childhood education. He thought children should be free to explore their environment, and they did at the Temple School. Several times a week, the children would engage in conversation with Alcott, sitting in a circle, and especially talking about the Gospels. The fresh perspective that children brought to the life of Jesus was a constant delight to Bronson Alcott. And, of course, he encouraged them to think outside the box, which sometimes got them and Alcott into trouble with the parental units. They also studied science and art. Most controversially, Bronson Alcott wanted to teach them about sex and reproduction. This resulted in many parents pulling their children out of the Temple School. This was simply too much. The school failed, and Alcott would move his family west to the small town of Concord, where with the help of the deep-pocketed friend Ralph Waldo Emerson, he eventually purchased Orchard House, where the Alcott family would live on and off for many years. Alcott also wanted to try his hand at being a utopian. Utopian communities were many during the mid-19th century. Of course, utopia comes from the Greek utopos, which means no place, so we know where this is going, right? He called his community Fruitlands, not because of the nature of people that lived there, but because it was in an old apple orchard. Fruitlands is just outside of the small town of Harvard, Massachusetts, not to be confused with the university. This was his chance to be a farmer. Now, farming was not an easy task in the 19th century under the best of circumstances, but Alcott made it more difficult by refusing to use animals to pull plows. So how was he going to farm? He did it by hand, using hand trowels, etc. Needless to say, not much acreage got planted during the short-lived community at Fruitlands. He was a vegan, but he also had other dietary restrictions, which he imposed on his family as well as himself. He refused to eat anything that grew underground. So no potatoes, no carrots, no onions. He only wanted to eat from plants that aspired to the sun, that grew upward to the sun. So fruit, nuts, berries, grains, above-ground vegetables, those were all okay. His daughter, Louisa May, whom we know is the author of Little Women, was 11 at the time that this experiment was going on, and she recorded in her diary the rather monotonous meals that they had. For dinner, we had fruit and vegetables. For dinner, we had bread and fruit. We had bread and vegetables. There was not a lot of variety there. They were also cold in the winter. Bronson Alcott would not wear wool. He believed that shearing a sheep was stealing the wool from the animal. Neither did the Alcotts wear cotton. To wear cotton was a symbol of supporting slavery in the South. At the old age of 80, fast forward a few years here, Bronson Alcott founded the Concord School of Philosophy for adult learners. This is the building that he had constructed near Orchard House. It's a lovely building. You can still have meetings there. The point of the Concord School of Philosophy was to engage the community, and I see it as the prototypical community college. It was only open in the summers when the days were long and the weather was tolerable, and it lasted for the last decade of Alcott's life. The curriculum was varied. They had one session one summer on the issue of morality. One summer they studied the works of the German romantic Goethe. Conversation flourished. Free exchange of ideas flourished. These were absolutely essential items to education, according to Bronson Alcott. The Concord School of Philosophy allowed people in the community to have discussions with and hear lectures from the best minds in America, not unlike our students here at ACC, right? It was a wonderful way for local people to expand their knowledge. Not everybody could go to Harvard and Yale, and of course in the 19th century, for most of the century, women couldn't even go to college at all. So it filled a need in the community like no other school had ever done. Just as our community college fills the need of helping students who need an alternate way into higher education. And that's why I think the Concord School of Philosophy is really the first community college. As Bronson Alcott aged, he received material and spiritual support from his daughter, Louisa May. They shared a birthday. They were very much alike in their personality. She supported him through her writing. When he died on March 4th of 1888, she was the only one of his 4 children still alive. His last words to her were, "I'm going up. Come with me. Come soon." And 2 days later, on March 6th of 1888, my friends, she did just that. Thank you.